The Lakers have been headed in the wrong direction since losing LeBron James. Lost their last 4 of their last 5 without LeBron. Tonight they face Timberwolves teams with a star in Karl Anthony Towns that is playing maybe his best basketball of his career. Here's Andrew Wiggins hitting a 3 in a corner. Then Wiggins also finding his rhythm.
Found his jersey, too. So he wore his jersey for the game.
I know, right? The other night he was checked in. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I got that.
Oh,
25 points at the half, 28 for the game for Andrew Wiggins.
Ooh,
breakout performance for him. Towns, well, he took over for the rest of the game. That's JaVale McGee with
it's a cat poster. Yep, Diesel dunk. There. Ooh.
Absolutely.
That's big game hunting, too, on the 7-foot.
Now, that's off the pass.
Oh, yeah.
Just beautiful.
Angle. Oh, see, that angle makes it even worse.
How about cleaning up the miss? Wiggins? No. Towns?
Oh!
Gotcha.
Okay, Cat, well, go ahead.
This is about effort, isn't it?
Yeah, all strictly effort,
This
Coach.
is about effort.
And then more Towns. Couple misses around the basket, and he's still cleaning it up.
You got Taj having fun rebounding, and then Cat getting there having fun rebounding. Then he gonna smile at him.
Karl Anthony Towns, 28 points,
Oof.
18 rebounds. We mentioned that 28 points for a reason. We'll get to that in a second. First, let's hear from Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, so Karl Anthony Towns, 28 points in each of his last 7 games, but breaking news from Minnesota. Tom Thibodeau has been fired as the head coach. This, according to Adrian Wojnarowski and Sean Sharania, both Yahoo and ESPN reporting that Tom Thibodeau is out as the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
And president, too, right? I mean, he was the president, too, Coach. So when you get fired, you lose both of those jobs, right?
I think you lose both of them.
Yeah, I'm thinking I think you fire the coach and not fire the president, right? Because he was the president making the decisions for the coach.
Well,
right, Tom, for that?
That could happen. You could fire somebody as a coach and keep him in the front office.
Right, okay.
Okay, like Urban Meyer leaves Ohio State, but he's going to be around. Some
President and coach, he's out as both.
Yeah, as both.
So
that's
3D,
official. Okay. Ooh.
Looking at the situation in Minnesota, why now?
Well, I guess, Glenn Taylor is the owner and sit down with his group and say he doesn't like the way things are going. The Jimmy Butler situation wasn't great. If you go back and look, and people say the Houston trade was probably better because there was more, picks there. So maybe they sit down and say, let's pull the trigger now before the All-Star break, before the trade deadline, if there's more moves to be made, Coach.
I look at it as because of their last stretch of 8 games, 5-3, brings them back into the playoff race. They're 2 games out of that 8th spot in the Western Conference. And you just got done saying how great Karl Anthony Towns has been playing. Karl Anthony Towns has a direct line to the owner of the team. That's how his contract got done over again. That wasn't a president making that move. That was the owner saying that. So maybe Karl Anthony Towns knows more than we do about what was going on in that situation. Perhaps that's the reason why we see a rejuvenated Karl Anthony Towns over the last 8 games. That's just speculation.
Well, again, this is reported right now. This is not official from the Minnesota Timberwolves, but if this is the case, you still have a team fighting for a playoff spot. What do they do now? How hard is it to find a head coach in the middle of a season?
I doubt that you make a move like that without knowing what direction you're heading in before.
Right.
Is it someone that's sitting out? And there are a number of recent head coaches that were fired that are sitting around, okay, that they might turn to. Or is there somebody within the organization that they have tremendous confidence in, that the players have shown the backing for that person, and that's who you turn to try and finish out, just like happened as Tyronn Lue took over in Cleveland and wound up finishing that season and was given the job full-time after that.
Yeah, in most cases, Chris, you stay within because one of those, if not all of those assistants collectively can continue to preach the system versus bringing a brand new coach in now and trying to, like to your point, last 8 games, Catman is rolling. So for a brand new coach to come in, now he has to either know the system they've been playing to kind of keep things going that way, or to your point, Coach, you're going to the top assistant you have in there. Maybe Ed Pinckney, is their top assistant right now.
I was just going to say.
He's been around a long time, and maybe it's an opportunity.
Ed Pinckney's been around a long time, has talked to a number of teams about possibly becoming their head coach. He's been by Thibodeau's side for a long, long time, and he's kind of been the go-between between players and coaching staff. Why not give him a chance? If
I think he deserves
it.
I think he deserves it. So it's be interesting.
So apparently Ryan Saunders is reportedly going to fill in on an interim basis as a coach there in Minnesota. So when you hear that name, what's the first thing you think about, Coach?
Think of his father, Flip.
Yep.
Okay? This young man grew up in a basketball household, and everyone who has worked with him has nothing but really good things to say about Ryan. So if that's the direction they're going in, you know he's going to work. You know he knows the game of basketball, and he obviously must be able to relate to the players because of the positions they've put him in within the organization. So if he's getting that shot, you wish him well, and we'll see the job he can do.
Ryan's been around from day one, to your point, Coach, as a kid. The one short year I was there, he's always been one of those kind of kids that's related to the players. He's been with the organization. He knows where all the, as they say, where all the bodies are buried, so to speak. So I think he can fit in right away. And I think Cat and Wiggs and all those young guys that are there now, I think they would accept it as well.
More on this situation as it progresses. So we see Tom Thibodeau reportedly out as the head coach there in Minnesota and also as president.
Hey, shake it up, shake it up, shake it.
Orlando and the LA Clippers. Tobias Harris won Aaron Gordon. Good start for Orlando. And whenever you get in the open court, DJ Augustine, you know who he's looking for.
You're looking for that guy that jumps to the moon.
Absolutely. Then it's Jonathan Simmons. You know, it's good to see Orlando playing defense and running the floor.
Yes, with all that length they had, they need to be blocking shots like that. Is that Mo Bamba? Oh, no, that was Isaac said, get that shot out of here.
Clippers getting back into it. They're poised. Tobias Harris, one of those poised players, hitting the mid-range. Then Danilo Gallinari, another one of those poised players. 19-4 run for the Clippers.
Amazing when Gallinari stays healthy, how his teams can wind up winning games.
That's right.
Certainly played just 21 games last year, has been around this season. And Aaron Gordon, you know not to jump with him when he's flying through the paint like that. Wise decision.
Yeah, you got to rotate quicker, Chris.
Clippers keeping it going in the second half. There's Tobias getting a touch. Then Montrezl Harrell.
The Energizer Bunny.
Flexes his muscle.
Old school, no?
Yeah, Coach, he's old school.
You love that.
Oh, come on, man. He's not drifting out there to the three-point line.
Then Lou Williams pushing the pace. A lot of Clippers highlights here, and you see that lead escalating. 15 points now, up that count to 17. Tobias Harris, 28 points, 9 rebounds. The Clippers get the win, 106-96. Brooklyn in Chicago. Jared Allen is a guy blossoming in front of our eyes. It's not just that afro. It's the offense and the defense.
Well,
there's the O.
We call it Afro power. Blocking shots, dunking on people. Get that shot out of here, Afro power.
He's earning that reputation on a defensive end.
Listen to me, all the things that Rudy Gobert has done in the previous years to earn his name, he's starting to do the same thing now.
And
19 points and 2
He's only
blocks for
20
Allen.
years old.
Just getting started, Coach.
Yeah.
He's just getting started.
Speaking of which, D'Angelo Russell knocking it down, and Damari Carroll doing the same, 20 points
The veteran.
for Damari.
The veteran still getting it done.
Shabazz Napier in the fourth quarter. You know, that's a guy with the clutch pedigree.
Yes, good call, Chris.
18 points for him, and we got ourselves a 15-point Brooklyn lead. D'Angelo Russell.
Oh,
28
ice water,
points.
ice water, ice water.
5
ice
assists.
water.
Brooklyn gets the win, 117-100. Look at their record now, 20-21 in contention, competing in the Eastern Conference. Here's D'Angelo Russell following another win. And there's a game we're here to get you ready for. We the North, the Toronto Raptors and the Indiana Pacers. They tip off right here in just a few minutes. Griff, stop me if you've heard this before. Jimmy Butler not happy about his situation. Why is this different than any other time we've heard this from Jimmy Butler?
Well, if you've just suspend the fact that it's Jimmy Butler, you don't think about what's happened to him historically in the past to get to this point. This specific episode is not that unique. This happens often. Players will challenge coaches in meetings during film, etc. It just doesn't get out. To me, what's significant about this issue is not that it's Jimmy saying he's uncomfortable with the offense, because I would bet Jimmy's had conversations with Brett Brown, where he shared these thoughts privately as well. He's probably told Brett when he came over, look, I run hot. This is how I work. I'm really competitive. I'm going to burst out once in a while. Come back at me the same way, because I know he wants you to push back just as hard. What's meaningful to me is it got out. And that, to me, is representative of the fact that there's been some discord there already. They've already had issues with the fit of Joel and Ben Simmons a little bit. They've had issues along the way where people aren't necessarily happy with the fit and role. And when you're 25-14 and you're playing as well as they're playing, it's unusual to have that level of discontent.
I agree with you. I'm a little bit worried that it got out. But we've seen the situation before with Jimmy, some stuff has got out. My biggest thing that worries me, though, is this is Jimmy's third stop. Normally in baseball, they say 3 strikes and you're out. And he's had problems, whether it be with young players, coaches, other star players, at every single stop. There was rumors that him and Derrick Rose had a little bit of a rift. Same thing with him and Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins. Now we see this here with the coaching staff. We see the situation with him and Embiid a little bit. It seems like they're going back and forth. I just see a lot of smoke. And for somebody that is going to be up for a maximum extension, you would think that Jimmy Butler would be on his best behavior. If I'm some of the other teams in the league and I'm thinking about throwing max dollars at this guy, that has to be a red flag. I have to start to consider maybe this isn't the guy. Maybe I go after somebody that's less talented but more tolerable in my locker room, because money just makes you more of what you already are. This guy has been here 6 weeks, and he's already cutting up, talking about he needs the ball, challenging the coaching staff. What do you do, and what do you think is going to happen if you give him $200 million? He might cut a slam full.
No, and I think that's true, and certainly because it's Jimmy, you do take into account the history. But I do think it's incredibly common for these conversations to take place and for players to be uncomfortable with their role, particularly when the fit of the pieces is as wonky as it is in Philly. Everybody wants things to be a little different. You remember earlier, Joel was not happy that he was playing so far away from the rim, and the reason they were doing that was a la Brook Lopez, they were trying to open the floor for Ben. So there's already those seeds of discontent. So what Jimmy then ends up doing is he makes the situation seem much worse. But I think there have been several times in the league where you thought it was a brush fire and there wasn't even smoke. And if it wasn't Jimmy Butler, I don't think this is even a story. But because it's Jimmy, that's the story. And to me, the story is it got out and they're unhappy winning this much.
I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me, because he had the problem with Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota and who was the guy. And now we see the situation here. I can't be used like, whoa. When you're not the guy, you have to figure out how to play with the guy. It's the same thing that we experienced in Cleveland. Kevin Love was not happy with his role. He didn't challenge Blatt. He didn't challenge T. Lue. He eventually figured out how to play with LeBron James because he was not the best player on that team. I don't know if Jimmy Butler has gotten that memo that Embiid is the best player on that team. And that worries me, once again, if I'm another team or if I'm a GM thinking about throwing this guy money. Like, if you're the Lakers and you're going after Jimmy Butler, is he going to get in line with LeBron James dominating the ball out here? Like, these are all the questions that you have to ask yourself when you bring Jimmy Butler in here. He is costing himself money by the day.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with the costing himself money thing. If it gets out that Philadelphia does not offer him max, it will be a very bad sign. And other teams around the league will wonder what's wrong. And they will agree, well, this is a problem for Jimmy. But if Philly is going after him full bore and they're offering him max, I think that will be something that teams sort of mitigate. And Kevin Love, you're right. He wasn't initially comfortable with his role, and it took him a long time to find peace with what was being asked of him. He was still voicing it. It's just that he had a different style of doing that. He approached it differently. You have to know that Jimmy's going to be a guy who's going to be all fire and come at you direct all the time. That's who he is. So, again, if he had not had the issues he'd had, I don't even care that he's uncomfortable where he's at right now. It's fine. But to your point, because he's done it so many times, he could potentially cost himself money if he doesn't eventually assimilate and be somebody who helps them win basketball games.
I just think that one of my favorite boxers is Miguel Cotto, and he had a line when he was talking to another fighter. He said, in every fight I was in, I've always known what side I was, whether I was the A side or the B side. I don't think Jimmy Butler realizes sometimes what side he's on. He's the B side. He's acting like he's the A side. You can't come in here talking about, hey, I want to be used this way and I want this, that, and the third. This is Joel Embiid's team. You need to do things in a more diplomatic type of way. You need to talk to Joel. You need to figure out how we're going to play together. But you have to understand, everything runs through the big fella. And I don't think that Jimmy Butler is all the way on board with that.
So, Brendan, we've fully explored Jimmy Butler's side of this, but you see the Brett Brown quote on the screen. I didn't think it went over the line. If it did, I would have addressed it.
He has to say that, though.
So for Brett Brown going forward, the rest of the guys on the team, whether it's Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons, the other people he has to deal with, is this something that may hamper his job going forward if Jimmy Butler is able to speak out in this way and there's not repercussions?
No question. We don't know if it went over the line or if it didn't. But here, let's just say for devil's advocate, it went over the line. He's officially just lost that locker room because now no one respects him. If it went over the line and people think it went over the line, and then he comes out and covers and says, oh, no, it didn't go over the line, it's okay, and he doesn't check Jimmy, now people think you're soft. And now what happens, the ripple effect is when Brett Brown wants to yell at Landry Shamet, he's going to be looking up there like, you don't talk to Jimmy like that. Don't come at me all hard. Don't with all that fire. And coaches slowly but surely, the trust erodes away and people just start looking at you like, yeah, whatever. And that's what happens. And that's part of this as well. Jimmy has to understand when he does this, it's not just about Jimmy. That's part of the problem. I think he's living in a Jimmy world and he's only thinking about Jimmy Butler. He's like the NBA's version of Antonio Brown.
We talked about this when they brought him in. They were absolutely increasing both their ability to be really good out of timeout late and design some things that opponents can't deal with. And they were also really increasing their volatility. And Jimmy brings that 100%. There's no question because of how hot he runs. I look at this, though, and I think a team that's this good, they're 25-14 overall. They're playing at a very high level in general terms since Jimmy got there. When you come into the season with the expectations they had, and the only thing that's going to spell success for you is making it to a finals or at least an Eastern Conference Finals, you're either all the way with me or you're all the way against me. So where this becomes interesting is come trade deadline, if they've got people in that room that are against them, they need to act on it because that's the one thing that unequivocally derails a season. This kind of thing is adversity, which is opportunity. You galvanize from this or you get radically worse, but at least it reveals something to you. Where this becomes actually meaningful, and I liked his quote saying what he said, but when this becomes actually meaningful is, A, if you're right about losing the locker room, which certainly I don't think you can say he's done to this point, but if they're not all the way on board with what's being asked of them as a team, then Elton Brand's going to have to start to jettison some of those pieces who aren't. And that's when this becomes intriguing to me.
Well, that's the problem. I think the pieces that you're talking about is Jimmy Butler.
Wow, and they just acquired him, 21 games ago?
It was all good just a week ago.
Mavericks, one of those games, one of 8 games tonight. Also, the Raptors-Bucks, this game we're waiting for, 8:30 right here on NBA TV. That guy, Nikola Jokic, had himself a game. Highlights coming your way.